All right, it's a new look Utah Jazz. Man, we're live and already messing up. But anyways, new look Utah Jazz play against Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. Doesn't go as you expected, or actually probably how you should have expected it. You know what? Let's just start the show. This is going terrible. Come on. All right, guys, before we get into this, and because I can't just restart the intro, let's just keep going. It's the Hoops Nerd Show, and our sponsor is Prize Picks. Holy smokes, let's get the ad up. Prize Picks sponsors this show. Go to prizepicks.com, use promo code HoopsNerd right there. Where's my hand? Right there. Use promo code HoopsNerd. They will match up to $100 if you go there right now. You put down $5, they will give you $5. It's free money. Just go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code. It's a lot of fun. Just use your allowance, okay? And be smart about it, but it's a lot of fun. And if you do a good job, you can get really rewarded, especially with new teams like the Jazz right now. When Prize Picks is trying to figure out the lines, you can really take advantage. So go to prizepicks.com, use promo code HoopsNerd. It would support the channel. All right, let's see here. The Utah Jazz lose to Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. Here's one thing I would like to remind everyone before we get started, as I try to grab my face here. Come on now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's a terrible show today. Terrible show. Terrible ending to the game. No, actually it was fine. You know what? I don't know if you guys knew this, but Kevin Durant is very good at basketball. I don't know if you've seen this guy. You heard about him. He's really good at putting a basket through a hoop. And also very good at keeping others from putting on their turn. He's very good at keeping others at putting the basketball through the ring. Very good at it. And he's been doing it for a long time. And tonight, the Utah Jazz go up against the Phoenix Suns, who didn't really have a ton of changes to their team. And the Utah Jazz had many changes. Right after trade deadline, the Utah Jazz lose Kelly Olynyk, major part of their bench unit. They trade Simone Fontecchio, major part of their starting unit that was winning a lot of games. And they trade Ochai Agbaji, who was getting about 10 minutes to 15 minutes a game off the bench. And the Jazz had new lineups with a rookie and Taylor Hendricks getting minutes. You know, THT got some minutes tonight. If you're surprised the Jazz did not win this game tonight, I'm telling you right now, you wouldn't be that surprised if they lost it a week ago with their full unit. So we probably should be even less surprised they don't win it tonight with these new lineups. Doesn't mean the Jazz are terrible. Doesn't mean these players are bad. It just means that they are going to have a few games. And Will Hardy made a quote about that. Let me pull it up here. I think I had it. Will Hardy said this to Ryan Miller. These next couple of games, I don't anticipate perfect play. I don't anticipate these next couple of games feeling great because we are putting some people in some different roles now, and we are going to play some different lineups. Exactly. Will Hardy understands it, and so should we. It's a new look Utah Jazz, and in a lot of ways, I was really happy with what I saw, to be honest. I mean, you know, Utah loses this game. They let go of the rope a little bit late, but there was one point with 4 minutes left. They were down just 11. And if you look at what the Jazz had here, they had 15 turnovers tonight. Look at this. 5 turnovers for Colin Sexton. And who else? That's a lot of turnovers, by the way. And 4 turnovers for Markkanen. And where is Jordan Clarkson? Jordan Clarkson, that's not even true. 0 for Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson shot 4 for 12, and the Jazz were actually in this game. So, I don't know. You know, and by the way, how many free throws did the Jazz miss? Colin Sexton is an 88% free throw shooter and missed 4 free throws tonight. You know? They missed 10 free throws tonight. They were down by 11 with 4 minutes left. It tells you a lot. This Jazz team is going to keep winning games. You know? I would not be too bummed if I'm a Jazz fan. Now, there's a lot to be excited about, and let's get into it, shall we? Lowry Markkanen, 8 for 15 from the field, 33% from 3. He looked pretty solid tonight, although I will say at times he looked like the third best player on the floor after Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. By the way, Bradley Beal still very good at basketball. Beal tonight goes 11 for 21, 52% from the field. He was 6 for 9 from 3 for a very nice field goal percentage of 66% with 7 assists. Bradley Beal was awesome tonight and showed why they traded so much to get him. If, they didn't even have Devin Booker tonight. If they start figuring things out with those three and how to play together, they are quietly a dangerous playoff team, which is what we kind of all expected, right? Kevin Durant, like I said, good at basketball. So we should not be surprised that he did pretty well against a team in the Utah Jazz that are in a little bit of transition now that they've had such a big trade deadline. So anyways, we talked about this in the pregame trade video I did. We actually talked about it last game, I believe, or maybe I didn't even talk about it. I might have been just talking to someone online. But anyways, John Collins goes to the 4. They bring in Walker Kessler. And the interesting thing with this trade deadline, they trade Kelly Olynyk. They trade Ochai Agbaji and Simone Fontecchio. And Walker Kessler might be the biggest benefactor of this. He's going to get a lot more minutes, and he got a lot more tonight. He starts at center. They move John Collins to the forward, and then they start staggering them with their rotations with either one at the center spot throughout the rest of the game. It's a pretty interesting lineup, and it kind of works a little better than what the Jazz were doing before trade deadline, because Walker Kessler is kind of obviously our best center prospect. John Collins has been good for the Jazz at center, but, if you have a chance to play Walker Kessler, you do, just because of his ability to defend. But John Collins has been pretty solid for the Jazz this season. And so him starting at the 4 allows them to do some interesting things. We're also seeing Chris Dunn start with this unit, so it has potential to be a pretty darn good defensive unit with just the size in general and Chris Dunn. And by the way, Chris Dunn was awesome tonight guarding Kevin Durant. 3 steals again for Chris Dunn. But anyways, Lauri Markkanen moves over to the 3 spot, which is impressive that he can do that. He provides so much versatility to this Jazz team, but he has 22 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. The rebounds go down because guess what? You have Walker Kessler and John Collins on the floor grabbing 23 rebounds between the two. So this starting unit, they grab just between those 3. That's 28 rebounds. Pretty solid stuff. How many rebounds did the Suns have in total? Total rebounds 37. So Utah, those 3 guys nearly out-rebounded the Phoenix Suns. So pretty impressive stuff. I expect Markkanen to just get more and more points. He'll get more and more time. He'll play better. But it's just transition. You're now having Markkanen play at the 3 instead of the 4. That's transition for him. It's going to take him a minute. And the nice thing for the Utah Jazz, they have 3 games actually coming up. Let's see here. In fact, let's bring it up just to see. The Jazz don't play for 4 days, so I'm going to do a video either tomorrow or the next day about trade grades and maybe the playoff run for the Jazz. We're going to just do more produced video, by the way, the rest of the season. But they have some pretty huge games coming up, and I actually think they have a kind of a little advantage here. They get 4 days rest. It allows them to practice with their new guys. By the way, they have Otto Porter and Kira Lewis coming. Maybe Otto Porter gets some minutes. Otto Porter's a solid player. He hasn't played a lot this year. Might be. In fact, I'm not even quite sure. Has Otto Porter been even playing? Back in the day, I was just pining for Otto Porter. And don't forget, he was a big part of the Warriors going to the finals and winning in the finals. He played huge minutes for them. This season, he's still shooting 42% from the field, 34% from 3, but I believe he hasn't been playing much. Although, look at this. Last 5 games were in December. So he's been out with injury or something. I don't even know. Obviously dealing with some sort of injury. He may not even play. I'll have to look into it. I don't know. But anyways, he might get some minutes, which would be nice. He's a solid NBA player. And a good veteran to have on your team to teach some players how to play, to be honest. But anyways, Lauri Markkanen's going to have a little bit of transition going back to the 3 with John Collins at the 4. John Collins plays a solid game tonight. Look at these numbers. With Walker Kessler, 21 points, 14 rebounds. Nice stuff for him. I know the plus minus here, that was probably that second unit. Kevin Durant actually just honestly munched the Jazz. This unit was John Collins with Keontay George kind of running things with the second unit, and they had some moments, but yeah. Minus 20 for John Collins is probably a sign that he was on the floor with rookies and THT. All right? So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. although we'll watch it, and I guess if it becomes a trend. We mentioned it, but Walker Kessler is probably one of the biggest benefactors of this trade because he's going to just get more minutes. We've been seeing him get around 15 to 20 minutes before tonight. Now he gets 27. Goes 4 for 6 from the field, 9 rebounds, 10 points, 4 blocked shots. Expect Walker Kessler to play better. I think he's going to get his opportunities now. We saw it tonight too, which was really nice, is you can stagger John Collins and Walker Kessler now and have Lauri Markkanen at the 4 with both of them. And now that Markkanen is familiar with both, it makes for a really interesting lineup. It'll be really fun to watch. I actually think, after tonight, I know it's a loss and the Jazz needed this one, but the Jazz are going to be still pretty darn good. I don't know about playing Taylor Horton-Tucker. I do not. And it was only 13 minutes, but they weren't great. But Lauri Markkanen playing with both of these guys is going to go well. And by the way, you're now seeing Taylor Hendricks, who we've got to talk about. It was fun. But anyways, that's pretty much the takeaway from there. I don't think I would read too much into this game. Honestly, there was a lot of great stuff. John Collins, look at that. 21 and 14 for Collins. Really nice. And Walker Kessler with 4 blocked shots playing solid center play. A lot to be happy about. Chris Dunn gets 23 minutes. And this is what we talked about before with this trade deadline coming up. When you trade Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji and Simone Fontecchio, there were going to be minutes there that needed to go to other people. And we already saw that 23 minutes for Chris Dunn is what happened. I'm a little surprised Colin Sexton didn't play more, but then you kind of look at the 5 turnovers and you can tell why. He did have 8 assists, though, for Colin Sexton, so you got to give him props for that. But I just love that we're going to see more Chris Dunn. And the other players we saw a lot of. Look at this. Keontay George plays 30 minutes tonight. Jordan Clarkson, 32. There's where a lot of those minutes went. And I would like to transfer these 13 minutes from Taylor Horton-Tucker to basically Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn or Keontay and Jordan Clarkson. They weren't great, and the fact that he can get to the line is really nice, but then Taylor Horton-Tucker misses 4 free throws. It's not great. There was a moment there where it looked pretty good, and then he just doesn't make the free throws. So what's going on there? Colin Sexton goes 7 for 15 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. He missed 4 free throws tonight, which is kind of strange. Even still, 19 points, 8 assists, only a -6 in this loss. He's going to get more minutes, and it's going to be interesting how these lineups adjust throughout the rest of the season. It's going to be just really fun basketball, and I think this Jazz team is still going to make the play-in. Could be wrong. Things could just fall apart, but I think there's going to be a tiny bit of an adjustment, and then I think this Jazz team is going to really be pretty nice and pretty interesting. It's going to be a fun team, guys. Losing those players, I know Ochai Agbaji going. I really personally was a big fan of Ochai, and I was a little surprised they traded him. But you know what? At some point, he needed to hit his threes, and he wasn't. So you can only wait so long. And I think 2 years is pretty good. He got a lot of opportunities, including Summer League, where it didn't look all that great. Steve, Jazz Exile. Fun to see the youngsters play. Coach Hardy will figure out how to get some wins from this group. Absolutely. Honestly, if there's anything I took from this, is that the Jazz are going to probably play at the same level they were pre-trade deadline. And then guess what? Now they get a second-round pick from the Wizards, which means it's going to be a very good pick. It potentially could be better than the Detroit pick. I mean, look at this. Detroit got some players. I actually think Detroit has a chance to. I mean, they're only 2 games back of Washington. That pick could get even better. It could go to 31. It is the best second-round pick potentially, or at least second best second-round pick in this draft. And there's some guys in this draft. It's not a good top-heavy draft, but there's guys. You look at this mock draft, and now it's updated. The Jazz are getting this right now. Ajay Mitchell? I don't know. You never know. So the Jazz might come out of it with something. And then they will get this number 26 pick as well. So all of a sudden the Jazz have 2 picks in this draft, players that can go to the G League, that can play next year. And I actually have a feeling we are seeing some signs of what's coming for next season. And I've been trying to tell people, but get ready for some changes. Let's see. We talked about Jordan Clarkson tonight played 32 minutes. He had 4 assists. It was not the greatest. It was not super my favorite. He goes 4 for 12 from the field. He does hit 3 for 8 from 3, which is nice to see. But just 13 points, and I just don't believe that he didn't have turnovers. I think this is a flaw in the system. But you know what? He played overall pretty solid, and having Jordan Clarkson on this team and not getting traded, something we predicted. I thought he was going to New York. It didn't end up happening. Why? Because Detroit is, run by morons. But Jordan Clarkson stays in Utah, and that means they likely move him this offseason, unless they just want to keep him. I mean, they have him for 2 more years after this one. You don't have to trade him. And guess what? His contract goes from like $22 million this year to $14 million next year, which makes him much more tradable. Very similar to what happened with Olynyk. It's harder to trade $22 million than it is 14. So we shall see. Let's see. So Keontay George didn't have the best shooting night, 0 for 5 from 3. So that's not the same as what he was doing the last 5 games. So that's too bad. But that shot will come back. And guess what? He had much more on his shoulders. Plays 30 minutes tonight, has 6 assists. He looked really solid at moments. It's just the shot was not falling. It will fall again. We've seen it fall. It will happen. And what's great is that he gets time now to actually do it. Does not have to look over his shoulder. Is not having to force the ball to Kelly Olynyk every single night and not get the ball back. He gets to run the show. And guess what? It looks better. On your prize picks, pick the over on assists for Keontay George. I'll tell you that. Because with him running the show, it's going to be a lot better. Okay. This was the story of the night to me. Taylor Hendricks plays 17 minutes tonight, and I loved every second of it. Yes, did he get crossed over by Kevin Durant a couple times? 100%. Yes, he did. But guess what? His name is Kevin Durant, and he's pretty darn good. I don't know if you guys knew this. The fact that the Jazz were having him guard Kevin Durant is a really good sign. And the fact that he did stop Kevin Durant a couple times in that first half, pretty amazing stuff. He has the chase down block in that, and then it turns into a Keontay George bucket, and then the next possession gets a stop on Kevin Durant afterwards. It is really exciting to see what he's going to do. He looked a little confused at times with where he's supposed to be on the floor and things like that. Guess what? It's going to get better. This is why you have him on the floor. At some point, he has to learn these things. You can only learn so much on the G League floor. Yes, you can hone your skill sets and things like that, but his skill set is there. It's ready to go. We saw a nice little pocket pass to, I believe it was Walker Kessler or Larry Markin. I can't remember. Really nice to see. He shows a lot of talent. He has a little bit of a dribble drive game that I'm sure will improve. And then he has a really good 3-point shot. Shoots 1 for 2 from 3 in this one. He's going to be a game changer for this Jazz team. And it's going to be, at some point this season, it's going to be pretty hard to justify not playing him at the power forward spot. It really is. I would not be surprised if next offseason, the Jazz find buyers for John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, and Colin Sexton. Chris Dunn, they're not going to trade. And that was one of the things I was really happy about this trade deadline, is the Jazz really value him. He brings defense. He brings leadership. He brings intangibles in the locker room and things like that. Positive attitude. He is the type of guy you want on your team, especially with young players developing. 100%. Kind of like a coach on the floor, right? A guy that's going to just kind of motivate guys, build guys up, tell them what to do, show them how to defend. Really nice to have a guy like that on your team and just show how to be an NBA player. I mean, look at Chris Dunn tonight again. 3 assists, 3 steals. How many blocks? 0 blocks. So only 3 stocks tonight. The stock master with 3. But really impressive stuff. 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. He just stuffs that stat sheet, kind of like AK-47. Just awesome. But anyways, I think Taylor Hendricks is going to be incredibly good. These 1 for 5, he's going to learn what he can and can't do. That is part of becoming an NBA player. Taylor Hendricks, for most of his life, has probably been one of the most athletic, tallest, longest guys on the floor. Now he's on the floor with guys like Kevin Durant, who are the best players on the planet. And you're going to have to learn what you can do. You're going to have to learn what you can't. And then at that point, you start improving. You start learning when to pass the ball and when not to. He had that one pass, he gets the rebound and he turns it over because he is just not used to it. You just need those moments. You need those mistakes. Mistakes are good for rookies. They don't help you win all the time. That's for sure. But guess what? He needs to be able to make those mistakes so he doesn't repeat them. And now he gets to play on the floor. Now we're going to see him start doing some really impressive things. And I am excited to watch it. I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of fun watching this game. Sure, it would have been more fun for them to win. I would say that beating Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal on trade deadline day after you send 3 of your rotation players away is a tall order, right? It's just going to be hard. But now they get 4 days. We get to say hello to Kira Lewis. We get to say hello to Otto Porter, and they'll get more time to just gel and have more practice time. Honestly, there's some guys here we might see. You know who I wouldn't mind seeing? Jason Preston. I thought it was interesting they brought him up, and he actually got on the floor tonight. And I don't know what you guys think. I've seen all I need to see of Talen Horton-Tucker. THT, I've seen enough. We know pretty much what he is. Jason Preston got a triple-double last game for the Stars. And I tell you what, a guy like that, I would like to see more than Talen Horton-Tucker. And I think here's my prediction. I think Jason Preston is going to supplant Talen Horton-Tucker, and I'd be more than happy to see that. If they need guard minutes, put him on the floor. If he's getting triple doubles, come on. I want to see it. By the way, guys, go look up the highlights from the Stars. Pretty darn good. Pretty interesting player. I mean, let's even just bring him up. Jason Preston. Let's see. He's 6'3". He's 24. Round 2 draft pick 33. I'm not quite sure who picked him up. Let's see. Who did he come from? The Clippers. You know what? Let's give him some minutes and just see. Because the things he's been doing in the G League have been pretty impressive. The Jazz actually got rid of, who was he? It was the guy from the Rockets. Christopher, for him. And he's all of a sudden looked really nice. And I want to see what he can do. I think it's actually pretty interesting. He might be one of those guys that you're like, holy crap, the Jazz. We're blurry. Can we get him on the floor? And holy crap, can he be a guy that we trade for another first-round pick? I don't know. Maybe. Will Hardy turns players into studs. And you know what? Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck have shown they find guys. And finally, let's just end with trade deadline here a little bit. If anyone thinks it wasn't a good trade deadline, I'm telling you right now, what an absolute success. There were teams asking the Jazz for Chris Dunn, and the Jazz said no. He was out of the NBA 3 seasons ago, right? He's in the G League. He earned his way onto the Jazz with a 10-day contracts last year. There were teams offering legit stuff for him, and the Jazz turned it down. He is a core part of what the Jazz are doing. The Jazz trade Kelly Olynyk, who they traded Bojan Bogdanovic for, turns into a first-round pick, right? So anyone who was really angry about the Bojan Bogdanovic trade and that the Jazz didn't get enough, well, guess what? They got Kelly Olynyk that has helped them possibly convey the pick this year and a first-round pick. So the Jazz got the first-round pick, if that makes anyone sleep better at night, They trade, Ochai Agbaji was part of the Donovan Mitchell trade. It hasn't worked out. It would have been nice to have Ochai Agbaji turn into like an elite wing player for the Jazz. It didn't happen. I wish him well. I hope it happens for him in Toronto. It didn't for the Jazz. But the Jazz get the first-round pick, and it clears space to re-sign Kelly Olynyk. Or not Kelly Olynyk, Lowry Markkanen. Right? So, you can talk about whether everything worked perfectly, but you know what? The Jazz gave Ochai Agbaji every opportunity. And couldn't really take that next leap, which is too bad. And by the way, Ochai Agbaji is in fact, let's go and just see. He's 24. People forget he was a 4-year college player. I mean, yes, we could say, well, maybe he'll develop more. Are we sure? He's, I love that he's 6'5". The size is pretty solid. He is, how tall is he? He's 23. He's just about to turn 24. So there's still years there where he can develop, but I mean, he played 4 years at Kansas. He has 2 years now with the Jazz, and the 3-point shot is still at just 33%. At a certain point, you just got to be like, Come on. You have to be a knockdown shooter. If you are not a playmaker, if you are not someone that runs the offense, if you're not those things, you better be a knockdown shooter. And you better be doing other things. Chris Dunn is not, all of a sudden, though, are we sure Chris Dunn isn't a knockdown shooter, by the way? Look at it. He hit 2 for 3 from 3 tonight. And if you look at his stats, I mean, Chris Dunn might become quite the nice 3-point shooter. It's kind of crazy what Chris Dunn is turning into, actually. But 42% from 3. So, I don't know. Chris Dunn isn't even a great example because he's just knocking down the 3. I don't know. It just wasn't happening. Ochai wasn't knocking him down. And he's 24 now, or just about to be. 4-year college player. I don't know. The Jazz have Bryce Sensabaugh on, by the way, coming up. Johnny Juzang can knock him down too. So we'll see. We probably see Bryce Sensabaugh here more too. And I would actually, if we're gonna watch Taylor Horton Tucker go 1 for 6 and take fadeaway 2s and pull up 3s and transition and knock and miss all of it, I would much rather watch Bryce Sensabaugh, right? And the Jazz, they got a pretty much. A lot of teams had him as a steal for the Jazz. So let's have Bryce Sensabaugh play, which I think will be pretty soon here. He's with, I think, the Stars. I want to see Bryce Sensabaugh instead of Taylor Horton Tucker. Give these minutes to Bryce Sensabaugh. Guys, this was fun. I'm really excited for the rest of this season. It's going to be a blast. Every game is going to be much more interesting. Watching Kelly Olynyk take shots and do things is fine. But now we're seeing the future of the Jazz. This is actually the first step towards the actual future of Utah. And next year, I mean, this offseason is going to be fascinating because this Utah Jazz team, let's just go here. This Utah Jazz team is, what are they, 26 and 27? Let's go here. Come on. What is going on? My internet's going slow for some reason. This Utah Jazz team is 26 and 27. Come on. There we go. Utah is 26 and 27. They are going to, this is a team that's going to be in like a crossroads this offseason, and I'm fascinated to see what they do this offseason. Will they go one way or will they go another? And I think the signs are pointing towards them. I guess, should we go big picture to end? Let's go big picture. What did we watch happen? They traded Kelly Olynyk, a vet. They traded Simone Fontecchio, 27. They did not want to sign him long-term. Apparently not part of the future. Kelly Olynyk, not part of the future. They want to re-sign Lowry Markkanen. We heard all the rumors. Jordan Clarkson. In fact, Tony Jones tweeted 2 or 3 times today that the Jazz were still, like Jordan Clarkson was still possibly getting traded. The Jazz were on the phones making potential trades. It didn't happen. My guess is Jordan Clarkson this offseason probably gets traded, at least based off of trade rumors. We heard multiple times, and this was one thing that Tony Jones never refuted, is with Colin Sexton being in trade rumors. This was from Jake Fisher. And I know Tony Jones last night was refuting some things, and shout out to Tony Jones, it turned out to be right. Sometimes you've got to, and here's what I've learned with SLC Dunk, just because Tony Jones says something different than Jake Fisher doesn't mean they're both wrong, or one's wrong and one's right. I think Tony Jones even mentioned this today. Some of them have different sources. One may have sources from an agent, one may have sources from a team, one may have sources from a specific player. There's all sorts of ways these guys can get sources. And so I tend to believe both of them, even if they're contradictory things. I think that Colin Sexton might be traded this offseason. The Jazz will probably trade him for the most value. My guess, and here's what I think happened. The Jazz found out that there was interest in Colin Sexton. But you know what the issue is there's just not a lot of first-round picks out there to be traded. Right now, the Jazz there's like 11%. There's only like, what was the stat there? 11 teams own like 75% of the tradable first-round picks right now. It's crazy. There's just not a lot of firsts out there. So the fact that Danny Ainge got a first-round pick for Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji is actually pretty remarkable. Detroit did not get a first-round pick for Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, who've been arguably their second and third best players this year, right? They didn't even get a first-round pick for that, which tells you how dumb Detroit is, but also how good that first-round pick was for the Jazz, for Danny Ainge to get that, and Justin Zanuck. Pretty impressive, you know? But guess what? This offseason and this draft, it changes. You know, certain picks can't be traded until draft night. For example, the Lakers cannot trade. The Lakers can only trade one first-round pick right now. And we know that the Lakers were in talks with Dejounte Murray, and supposedly the Jazz were too. I know Tony Jones refuted that, but it goes back to the idea that other sources may know things that others don't. And maybe Tony Jones knows more than Jake Fisher, and maybe Jake Fisher knows something that Tony Jones doesn't. I don't know. Who knows? But I tend to look at both, and if they're both reputable reporters, then I will write about both, and we will talk about both, and I will take everything into account. That's what you have to do. By the way, that's why you should be reading SLC Dunk, because you will get every angle, you know, and you got to just take in all this data. But anyways, this draft night, more teams will now have access to their picks. And this offseason, more teams will then be able to trade more picks. And so with the Lakers, as an example, they could only trade one first-round pick right now for Dejounte Murray, and that's why they weren't able to do it. Plus, the Hawks were asking for Austin Reeves, you know? So there's no way they're going to do that. Why would you trade Austin Reeves for Dejounte Murray? That is a lateral move at best. But this offseason, the Lakers now have access to trade 3 of their first-round picks, right? All of a sudden, they can do a lot more with 3 first-round picks. If a first-round pick gets you Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk, you're probably looking at a trade like that and going, well, why don't I wait till this offseason if I want to make a move, right? It's why the trade deadline didn't have a super blockbuster move. There were just not a lot of picks out there to be traded. And so, you know, if the Lakers can benefit from that, someone like the Utah Jazz can as well. And that's why I would be expecting these trades, guys. If the Lakers can trade 3 first-round picks, if other teams now have access to trade more, then Utah is going to take advantage. There was an interesting thing that happened when Danny Ainge was, and I can't remember who talked about this, and it was a rumor. Forgive me, whoever said it, but you were smart when you did. That was, holy smokes, I'm turning my Grandpa Max. Shout out Grandpa Max, by the way. Former commander in the Korean War, Grandpa Max, and he'd say things like that. Talking like everything was. But anyways, I think the Jazz spent a lot of this trade. I mean, because apparently the Jazz were on the phones constantly. Just because you don't make a trade now doesn't mean you're not setting up potential trades this offseason. You know, all the work the Jazz did to trade Jordan Clarkson now is not wasted. All it does is set you up for a potential trade this offseason. Like if the Knicks really want Jordan Clarkson and they know, well, this is what the Jazz want, then they can possibly give it to the Jazz this offseason when they know what it takes, or if something else they're looking for doesn't work out. Or maybe we saw the rumor from Dave McMenamin that the Lakers were interested in Colin Sexton. Well, guess what? If the Lakers want Colin Sexton, they have 3 first-round picks. They can probably get him for one of those this offseason. And Utah would probably be like, sure thing. You want to give us a pick post LeBron James? Where do we sign? You know? Or maybe they can do something with the Lakers where they take off the protections of that 2027 pick. There's a lot of things the Jazz can do this offseason, and they have probably been building up to those things. Kind of like the John Collins trade. Remember that the Jazz had all these talks with the Hawks and the Knicks and all these things during the Donovan Mitchell era. A lot of that probably set up some potential trades like they did for John Collins, right? So all these things are building relationships. You're having a lot of talks that are going to build relationships, you know, for potential moves down the road. Everyone now knows what the cost is for Jordan Clarkson, what the cost is for Colin Sexton. The Jazz were not desperate to trade those guys. The Jazz are not tanking. My guess is because Colin Sexton was available and because teams were probably asking for him, the Jazz are still going to try to convey this pick this year. while also giving minutes to Taylor Hendricks and Keontay George, and basically giving minutes to Taylor Hendricks and freeing up Keontay George and potential minutes for Bryce Sensabaugh, right? But they still have Larry Markkinen, they still have Walker Kessler, they still have Jordan Clarkson, they still have John Collins, all these rotation guys, Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton. The Jazz are going to still win a bunch of games this year, especially when some teams start phoning it in and tanking, or when playoff teams start trying to jockey for position and don't mind losing a game or something like that. There's going to be games the Jazz are going to win. Even tonight, the Jazz, if the Jazz were full strength, they probably could have stolen this one if they were full strength before, but it's okay. They're going to win a lot of games. And guess what? We're going to have moments where Taylor Hendricks has like 4 for 4 from 3 and has 2 block shots, and all of our eyes just go like, holy smokes, There's going to be a lot of fun, and they're going to win more games than you think, especially from what we've seen tonight. Keontay George running the show, all of a sudden 6 assists tonight, and it didn't even look like that was that hard. He's going to get more. It's going to be really great, and he's not going to go 0 for 5 every night. In fact, well, tonight's not a great night to look at it, but that 3-point percentage is rising. 33%, and that's after going 0 for 5 from 3. That's going to go up. How nice is that going to be? By the way, is he number 3 in Rookie of the Year rankings by the end of the year? I wouldn't be surprised. He has a chance to really open some eyes, and he may be starting by the end of the season because Colin Sexton's been in a little bit of a slump lately. These 5 turnovers, you can't be doing that, And Jordan Clarkson going 4 for 12, I don't know, but don't be surprised if we see Keontay up there with Chris Dunn at some point starting. That would be a lot of fun. 30 minutes tonight, in fact, that is really solid. And Taylor Hendricks, 17 minutes, and they had him guarding Kevin freaking Durant. 8 rebounds, 3 points, pretty solid stuff. And a nice block shot. In fact, can we end with a block shot of the night? If you had any questions about what he could do, look at this. Let me do this so I don't demonetize. Bam, bam, bam. Watch. Kevin Durant drives, Taylor Hendricks, bam! We'll end with that. We will end with that. That was incredible. Guys, if you're a Jazz fan and you're new here, you should like and subscribe to the channel. It's a Utah Jazz channel, and it's the best YouTube channel about the Utah Jazz out there. It's not close. There's people out there that might say it, but they're lying to you. This is the YouTube channel about the Utah Jazz, and you absolutely should like and subscribe. On top of that, if you love this channel, share it on social media. Go send a link to Facebook and say, hey, this is my favorite Utah Jazz YouTube channel. You should go check it out. I would love that. That would be great. All right, guess what? It's time to give a shout out to our All-Stars tonight. And we also have 2 picks in this draft, baby. We're back in the draft. All right, let's give a shout out to our All-Stars. These are the members that just make an absolute difference, baby. All right, let's give a shout out to Dirty Jazz Car Wash Channel, Just Buckets JB, Baby Elliot Matson, Christian House Money DeHaas, The Outlaw Jesse James Nelson, all the Josh you need, just Josh in your pod, Ezekiel Recibe, the man from down under, yes, Jake Seacan, see ya, Lex Later, Built for Tough, Alexander Tufts, Jorge Arrizaga, mi amigo de abajo, Jordan the Goat, Best Roll, TGD, Total Game Domination, Tyson Price, The Price is Right, Austin our Grant, Editor Extraordinaire, KO to Anybody But Briante, gotta change that up, DWCB, Patrick Google with a Connoisseur, and Robert Hall of Fame. Like I said, guys, like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. Go to PrizePicks, use promo code HoopsNerd. I will talk to you next time.